Wonderful.
Okay, now
Good.
fingers crossed.
Yeah. So before we move forward, you can just keep that slide. I will talk more of the principles that how you can slowly change in your culture and introducing some core ideas from design thinking that can be taken into concrete form as tools and methods on your organization to truly have the design thinking and design and customer centricity at the core. That was really complicated way to say that I will speak on quite high level due to time constraints that what we have here. But let's start with this one, that since the track's name is business agility, since I'm presenting now, I can take the ball and just rephrase what the business agility is in my terms, and you have nothing else to do except accept those as a facts. So that makes life a lot easier for me here. So in my terms, the business agility is an ability to ensure that the value that you deliver is as certain as it can be, and that's not based on assumptions or just something that CEO said, which means that there's also a clear priority and goals for everyone what to focus on. It's also the ability to how you can utilize your full organization as a problem solvers and design thinkers and innovators rather than treating teams or your implementation teams as a feature factories, which is not very motivating for people, or overwhelm your centralized UX design organization with feature specification or micromanaging. Also, the business agility is a ability to identify that the problem or need that you are solving there by given epic or feature or team that is truly an proper problem to solve, not just adding more features or complexity for the end users, but truly bringing the value for your business and end users. And also it is an ability, most importantly, its ability to be humble and keeping the end users in the center, everything that you do, and trusting the data, thinking that what is important, not just like trusting the organization chart, saying that what's the most important part there. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah, wonderful. So let's still stay here for a moment and let's get to the same page at what design thinking is and how it is relevant here. And the design thinking is exactly the same on the same points that were mentioned before there. It's about learning to have empathy. And by the way, this is the word that I'm going to use quite a few times, and I have no idea how to pronounce it. I mix empathy and emphasize all the time, so please bear with me. I try to talk about empathy, but if you hear emphasize, correct it in your head. Anyways, the design thinking is about ability to learn and understand and work in order to deliver services or products or other values to customers that they need and want, and keeping the customers all the time at the core of thinking what we should be doing. There are several different models how the design thinking is to be applied, and here is a screenshot of most of those. And key point of all of this is to understand the customer and get diverse thinking to get the service or product to next level compared to what you have there. And most of the companies and services have either internal or external design thinkers, service designers, and similar roles in place already. And most of the agile frameworks nowadays mention that those things are rather important and have some kind of a skeleton models around it. Can we go to the next slide? Wonderful, thank you. So key parts of design thinking is its ability to emphasize, empathize. Once again, I have no idea how to pronounce this word. Aim all the time to understand end users and apply outside-in thinking on whatever you are doing. And it's also about divergent inclusive ideation, which means that everybody in the organization needs and must be got into ideating and working as a problem solvers. And the key part of it is that it's iterative. You test and learn, you test and learn, and test and learn, and that's the way how you can improve. So keep the humble way all the time. You never know when you've done right. You just need to follow up the data and get things right. Can we go to next slide? Why design thinking is important? Let's start with this one. Why design thinking is important, why you and the service or company or wherever you work need to be mindful about this. I think that most of us, if not all of us, probably all of us, have some experience with some sort of an app or service or procedure or whatnot, like banking or insurance app or government whatnot, or local grocery store shopping list app, where you just are using that on daily basis and thinking in your mind that why on earth can't they fix this thing X that I'm using all the time? This can't be that big of a thing. So that nabbit curse word and so forth. They should use this themselves so they can fix this. I think that this sounds familiar to most of you if you are using printers or whatnots, and most of us can familiarize themselves with that kind of a thing. So here's a quite interesting graph that you can see on the slide now. 80% of the companies believe that they provide a superior proposition. This is from Bain Customer-Led Growth Diagnostic Questionnaire. And then 8% of the customers agree. So how many of you, probably you can vote on that, raise a hand, how many of you can be 100% sure that your service is not represented on this 78% here that believes that we have a superior proposition, a superior service for our end users, but 8% of your customers disagrees. So it's quite important to apply the outside-in thinking and have the customer-centric view on everything that you do. Can we go to the next slide? Thank you. Let's stop here. So there's 95%. I'll give you a few minutes to think about this, what this 95% might mean. Those ones who already opened the PDF, please don't share the information yet. And we can poll later or during this one that how many of you got this right. Can you click once? Thank you. 95% of the value, the benefit, the goodness of service, of bestness of service, and the quality aspects of the services that people are using, either physical or digital, that is based on emotion. Emotional response. What brand is the best? Which brand is the priciest? What is cheapest? What is cool? Is CrossFit cooler than the circuit training that you did on elementary school? That is based on emotional response. And 95% of people's answer or reaction to your service, it's critically thinking quite irrational. Emotions are irrational. Why we choose this one over that one? Why I select this product over other one that has equal qualities? Why I like iPhone and other one likes Huawei or Samsung? It's really difficult to pinpoint, and that's really fluffy thing to handle. What people say in tests or insight that might not be completely real. There's one thing that everyone says in all interviews, that what is the most important thing for them. Like, for example, if you ask people's behavior in normal everyday grocery store shopping, everybody says that thing for me selecting my things from grocery store is the cleanest, the organic thing and close range, yet the most sold items are candies and that kind of things. So what you get from insights doesn't really match on people's behavior. So design for end users, because end users, it's quite fluffy, and there are now no absolute truths, and that's quite interesting. Can we go to the next slide? Design thinking is exactly what is aiming to cover this fluffiness, and why design thinking is so hard to implement. There's this quote from Gary Hamel, a guy who is most influential business thinker according to Wall Street Journal, that right now your company has 21st century internet-enabled business processes, mid-20th century management processes, all built atop 19th century management principles. For Agile audience, I think this is really not that much of a news. But my argument here, a person who is not yet noted by Wall Street Journal, is that most of the foundational methodologies and practices, even on Agile domain, they stem from technological and engineering perspective. And on that, we fail to understand the fluffiness and complexity of end-user perspective. But anyways, luckily, most of the audience, if not all of you, are now muted, so you can't disagree on this one, so you will just take this as a fact. So it sounds like the second point is even true. I know it's a bit oversimplification and provocation, but we'll get back to this in a moment. But I think that we probably everyone agrees that larger the organization and the bigger the service, it's harder to be quick and agile. This is rather normal, and I trust that no one will beg to differ on that one. There's always a need for larger view, more specific estimations, and what we will have in quarter or half a year, and how many people we need, and how many euros, and so forth. And that is something that is truly undermining the true essence of being agile. Can you push the next slide? Thank you. I argue that this one is the most common core problem and symptom for most of the agile organizations, that you have volatile priorities. Priorities are changing, things are popping up to be number 1, and then in a week they are number 10, and things switch, and that might cause some chaos there. And I think that this is the most common flaw that I've seen and heard in many agile organizations, small and big, that the priorities keep on changing. And I argue that the reason for this is that there's not enough structures to keep the customer and have the customer fluffiness and the complexity in the center. So we fail to understand completely the problems that we are building our solutions. Are these valuable? Are these solutions really the ones that are the best or the optimal ones? And the thing here is that all our hypotheses on epic or portfolio or feature level or whatnot level, all our meeting room brainstorming and sessions for optimal solutions, they are only hypotheses. And what's not stressed enough, user tests and these brainstorming sessions, design sprints, whatnot, they give at the best a bit indicative ideas and indicative directions where we can go. If the hypothesis value is not certain, one new seed of doubt or one new seed of information might switch the priorities when we haven't really said out loud these unclarities and complexities that we have. Can we go to the next slide? I trust that most of you know this acronym that is about to be popping up, the WSJF, that is known at least from SAFe framework. And this is an epic prioritization method that kind of gives you quite good calculations there. Remember what I said about the volatile direction and seeds of doubt or seeds of insights that turn the other way around. This is kind of giving us a implicit understanding that whatever the W is, that weight or the value of the item, it has to be an absolute fact in order for this calculation to work. But what happens when this number is based on guessing? Remember the volatile direction there? I think that whenever we have something that we are not completely sure of, everybody knows deep in their heart, the decision makers, the portfolio boards, whoever is making those calculations, they understand that the previous calculation and prioritization that we did, that was based on assumptions and not on facts. And that's the reason why we kind of let things change in priority. And this might also be a case why sometimes organizations seem to prioritize technological things to do more than end-user related things to do, because they are clear. It's much more easier to find out the absolute truth on technological aspects and development than end-user related things. So it might be that end-user related things go down because the fluffiness and complexity is not that well taken into account. Most of the time, from design point of view, we have no clue what works the best. We have kind of a clue upfront, but I would say that 100%, never 50%, sometimes most of the time 20% upfront in different boards and discussions, we know if something works. So there goes your W on the calculations unless you start to really dig into this. Can we go to the next slide? Most, if not all, of the Agile frameworks have already, like I mentioned before, have some skeleton models around this. And I think that all of these are great. Whatever organization is using any of these, they will benefit greatly compared to organizations that don't have these kind of structures in place. We spend some time to iterate and do tests. We have MVP in mind and carry on, and this is all very good. But there are a few problems with this approach. This is what I try to argue here and bring some structure around this. It's a bit oversimplification and underestimation of complexity of the most of the different companies face and organization face when they are doing something for the end users. What is most commonly interpreted from these structures, what I see, is that nearly whatever you do, it's sprint maximum 2, little bit of ideation, maybe a design sprint over there, and few testings and rapid learnings, and that's it. We are ready to go. We have everything for sure, and let's just roll with this. Don't get me wrong. This works. Iteration or 2 or customer interview or 2 is a lot better than none, but still there are a few things to take into account here. Sometimes it's not sufficient. What about those times when you are doing something really business critical or you are inventing something new? How you can handle that one? Most of the time, this approach, as I seen it as a single one-size-fits-all solution, it gives us a little bit of false hope, maybe a false understanding of the case. Can we go to the next slide? That picture, as a designer, what I argue against those kind of charts here, there, how you can apply some design thinking on your organization, it's an oversimplification because it shows that one simple structure handles your whatever. Do you need a hammer or saw or paint on your renovation? That depends what you are doing. In reality, on design thinking, it's not only way of thinking, but it's also consisting of quite a bunch of tools and methodologies that are practically good for one purpose or maybe few purposes, but not all of them. In reality, there are 300 methods to apply depending if you need insight or if you need inspiration, if you need concepting, if you need to create a personas, if you need to understand more about different phenomena of performance of your own services or products, or if you need to get some data or insights about trends. What tool you pick, that kind of depends that what you are doing. So those pictures shown before, they don't really give you a lot of tools to select the right tool there. Can we go to the next slide? Wonderful. There's this one quite famous guy called Einstein who allegedly said this, that if I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and only 5 minutes thinking about the solutions. Now we are getting to the core, how you can apply some bandage and get a structures around how you get design thinking properly in your agile organization to support what you are doing there. But how does one think about the problem? How does organization think about the problem? Probably it's not quite okay just to spend 55 minutes on it and book a calendar time on it, but probably you need to do something a bit more active and something a bit more structured during that time. So can we go to the next slide? As argued before, this is also the mandatory iceberg from a consultant. I think that everybody has to use this at least once in a year. So this was my time now. So this is what I usually see. Things that are usually tested and discussed are what you see there on top. We talk about a little bit about the problem statement. We don't dig too deep on that one. We talk a little bit about the solutions. Might be that the Epic has already a described solution intent, and we just follow that. And we have few discussions around the usability. These are the things that are usually tested and discussed. But then on the bottom, we see things that are not usually discussed there. There are lots of unknowns caused by complexity and the domain of business, what you are doing. There are some expectations for your brand. Might be that you check you are running an e-com site and you check something that Zalando or Amazon does and you just want to copy it. But you don't really get into the core if your end users are expecting the same kind of a behavior from your brand, from communication point of view or marketing point of view or any kind of point of view, because your brand experience is quite different. There's also architectural and operational aspects that might dictate if you succeed on this or not, and whatever your competitors are cooking at the same time. If anyone is familiar with the Kano model, that's quite interesting to see how your flashy features that you are doing now might be a hygiene factors in a few days. But anyways, even when applying some design thinking toolkits, like shown on previous pictures, it's mostly the scratch on the surface, scratch on that top level. Sometimes we do things like simple UI fixes or usability stuff when there are workshop or two to look what we have and pick up a can of paint and make it prettier. It works. Sometimes we talk about something completely new business idea and discuss of business disruption that you might be experiencing, you are about to do to others. Do we then take the same people and similar kind of a meeting and go through that one? It's a bit different one. Can we go to the next slide? So problems need to be your problems. We fail more often because we solve the wrong problem than because we get the wrong solution to the right problem. Can we go to the next slide? So what you need to do, like mentioned, that there is quite a bunch of different tools from design thinking mindset that design thinking that you can start using to figure out what you are and getting the customer perspective and getting your solution right. So you need to start thinking about the different complexity factors that you have on the problem that you are fixing. On the left side of this one, you see the clarity of problem root. Do we have more knowns or unknowns on this problem that we do? On the bottom, we have the predictability of outcomes, which means that has anyone ever done anything like this? Can you be sure that this is something that people need, or can you be sure that this is something that people are expecting? Can you click once? Thank you. If you have quite a little of unknowns, you have high amount of knowns on your problem, and the predictability of outcomes, you are probably dealing with something that is quite simple problem, which means that the picture is clear, we know what's the matter, and there are even books of best practices that gives us a clear view of what solution just to slap on this. It's just a matter of fixing. Can you click twice? Thank you. So usually these ones mean that you are dealing with some hygiene factors like usability or performance or omni-channel coverage, or your competitors have an app and you don't, and that's the reason why you're losing business. So just do an app, as simple as that one. So what are the different toolings and things that you need to start doing from design point of view is first you start to gather the data, what is the issue, then you benchmark and check what's the best practice and just implement it. Quite simple problems, and probably the most of the structures show exactly that one. Can you click once? Thank you. Then we have also a nice fellow here, which is called complex problems, where we are a bit in a situation where behavior of customers looks unpredictable for some reason. We know that they are happy or unhappy. We have very many unknowns. We have difficulty to find the problem statement, but we might be losing business for some case. Can you click twice? Thank you. Some of these usually tells that if you are in this kind of a situation, then probably what you are doing something, or you should be doing something emerging novel business model or service concepts, or you are working on something like brand renewal. This is something, a problem scheme that is something that someone else has fixed in some possible way a bit before, but not exactly the similar. So you have kind of understanding what to do, but you don't really get to the core of it. So what you start to do it here, you just start to gather the inspirations and insights. So it's more of knowledge management, and then you start experimenting, ideating, and iterating. Can you click once? Thank you. Then we have this, whenever it's here. Then we have complicated problems where we understand the problem, but there are no earlier experiences for solutions to make the customers happy. So we have quite a difficulty to find the right solutions. Can you click it twice? Thank you. On this kind of a case, you are probably dealing with something completely new or unseen business model or service concept. And at what you need to pick up from design point of view to start learning and get into the core is that you start to experiment and analyze and iterate. And from that, you continue experimenting, analyzing and iterating just to get to the core what you are doing. Can you click one more time? Thank you. Then we have this nasty bugger here, which is the chaotic problems, where insights and user tests might not give you any realistic direction or knowledge, but the data looks that something is off. We don't really know why we perform so bad or good. We have difficulty of everything. We don't know why things are happening. And this is exactly what happens, that you might have been disrupted, or you forgot to follow trends, or you might have something like COVID that is hitting your business at this point. Can I click once more? And practically only way out of this is to extinguish fire, and you need to start to gather data and insights and churn your problems into smaller pieces. These are archetypes of different kind of problems that you are dealing from end user point of view. And you can see that there are all of these have slightly different way to start tackling it, to the double diamonds, first diamond from design thinking, how you can get to the core what we are doing here. Either you start experimenting and analyzing, or you start to gather inspirations and then experimenting. But anyways, these kind of cases give you a good indication where you don't really get into the final concrete solution in a meeting rooms, talking with other portfolio management members. You just have to start doing something, but in a structured way. This is a scratch of surface, but at least this is a good structure that has helped quite a few organizations to start to understand how you can get a bit more structured way to start building on your epics. Can you click the next slide? As a majority of development in organization is truly an end user related, it's crucial to implement user-centric design thinking in structured way. And one piece of that could be to start handling your epics or whatever issues you are doing, go them through that analysis and try to identify the right way for designers or your design organization to start churning those unknowns to knowns and get a bit better understanding where you are going. Can you go to the next slide? Design thinking is in heart. It's collaborative, inclusive, and empathetic way of thinking where corresponsive set of tools and methods are employed to discover from outside in what are the end user needs, what is technically feasible and most viable as business concept. Please note the statement there, it's corresponsive set of tools. So depending of case what you do, you select some tools. Sometimes you don't even have full clarity and full understanding of the optimal solution in a meeting rooms. You find it out 12 months after go live. You just need to admit those unknowns. So it's a human-centered approach to problem solving that helps the organizations to unravel the unknowns and amplify the agility. Can you click the next slide? Thank you. This is exactly the point there, that the goal without the plan is just a wish. If you want to make decisions and keep clear direction and move faster, you need to know exactly where you are and what obstacles you need to get over. So in the presence of unknowns, it's important to have a process to say them out loud, identify them and churn them to knowns. And that's exactly where design thinking tools can help you. And what tools and methods you need to select from design thinking toolbox depends on the analysis and complexity, kind of what are the iceberg items and where you are and what is the situation where you have. Do you even have any realistic ability to have any certain knowledge of that before you move forward? Can you click once more? Slide change is quite slow, but this is also one important part, and this is kind of a second last slide that I have, that if you want to build a ship, don't drum the men to gather wood and divide the work and give orders. Instead, teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea. This is really poetic way to say that please involve everybody in your organization to get part of the problem solving. Can you click the next slide? So you need to get the problem solving as close to the problem as possible. This kind of a structural method to approach the end user related problems and identify the work needed to done on each level of organization, from portfolio to team and whatnot. helps you to identify that what kind of tests you can give to the teams and what kind of responsibility you can give to the teams to deliver the value. Most important part is to be transparent of your problem analysis, what needs to be done, where you want to go, what are the knowns and unknowns, and with inclusive organization and little coaching, you can ramp up your design thinking capacity from your design team to the full organization. So the divergent thinking comes from the full organization, not from portfolio boards. It might be that your back-end developer has the best idea to solve a problem once you tell them and give them responsibility to truly figure out what is the solution to this problem and not just treat people as the feature factories. And remembering the 8 to 80% gap, it's important to take your teams and product owners to participate and run user tests. Then you can have the people in power to change those things, understand what are the usability or other issues on your service. Take your team to talk to customer service, and most importantly, take your CEO to talk to customer service, participate, and even run the user test to truly understand the end user point of view. Can you click the next slide? These are the key takeaways. Like I promised, I will talk on high level, and hopefully some of the things resonated with you. I'm 1 minute over time, but thing is that user centricity, it's quite fluffy, but it can be tackled with design thinking and structural way to analyze where you are going and what kind of problems you have. But thing is that if you don't tackle these ones, you will fly blind and you will be quite directionless, and probably your agility is not as agile as you want it to be. No problem is equal. You need to select the right process and right tools for right kind of problems and apply a structural way to analyze your icebergs and complexity. And remember that the value and solution hypotheses, they are always hypotheses. And design thinking can help you to turn these guesses into facts. Sometimes we might know upfront in a meeting room when something truly works. Most of the time don't. So be ready to admit when you don't know, so you can know them by the end of the day and don't just play the game where you call that you know them. Can you add the last slide? Thank you. Please. Remember the 8 to 80% gap. Don't be that organization that thinks that you have end users in the center when you don't. Thank you.
Thank you, Sakke. Your presentation was truly interesting. Now there's a time for questions and answers. Actually, we could try that you can ask also live questions using the raising your hand. So if there are anybody who would like to ask questions on live, it's possibility now to raise your hand. And Mika can ask you to the podium. At least now I cannot see any, so I'll go and check out the questions in Q&A. But if you want, you have still the possibility to ask live questions. Okay, we have one question here that has 11 votes. So design thinking seems to be a general concept with huge toolbox available. Is there some starting point you would recommend to us? Some book, some workshop?
I need to try to remember the author's name. I think that Tim Brown, I think he's ex-CEO of IDEO. He started this whole design thinking thing back few years back, and I think that his book is kind of the best place to start with. Unfortunately, design thinking has suffered quite a lot of inflation. It's been used in many different formats, and most of the time it comes without any structure, and it has become a tool for designers to do whatever. But the main core, just remember, whatever you read, if those books don't talk anything about technical or operational possibilities or capabilities that you need to match your design vision against those, ignore those ones. That's my tip.
Okay, I think the next question is about your presentation. So there's a question, is that like modified Cinefin without attribution in your presentation?
Yeah, the problem statement model, I think that it's a combination of Kynevin, however you pronounce that one. It's even more difficult to pronounce than emphasize. It's quite similar to that one, but also there are some structured, similar kind of structures just for complexity mapping. So it's a match of quite a few different mappings of complexity. The book, by the way, I just found it. It's Tim Brown, and book is called Change by Design: How Design Thinking Transforms Organizations and Inspires Innovation. I truly recommend that one.
Okay, we are running out of time, but I think you're still available during the coming break.
Yes.
For the additional questions.
A word from our sponsor, which means that TalentBase has sponsored a table, and I'll be available during the next break on floor 1 and TalentBase table. So please navigate there, and we can have more detailed one-to-one questions and that kind of things there. So
yes,
talk to you later.
Thank you very, very much, Sakke, for your presentation.
Thank you.
And please, everybody, utilize the possibility to ask questions and meet others.